Good afternoon. It's Sunday, the 12th of February. I'm Yael Shir, and this is IBA News, broadcasting live from Jerusalem. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu convened a special cabinet meeting today to discuss the issues that will be raised during his upcoming meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. Speaking at the start of the meeting, Netanyahu said he has heard there is much anticipation surrounding his scheduled meeting and that he was certain there were all kinds of motivations behind the excitement. The Prime Minister emphasized that his sole goal in heading into the talks is Israel's national interests, saying that up until now he has responsibly steered the nation in its ties with the U.S. and will continue to do so now. He also cautioned ministers who have called on him to rescind his support for a Palestinian state when he meets with Trump, saying Israel needs to act wisely. Earlier at a Likud party meeting, Prime Minister Netanyahu emphasized that while Trump's administration appears to be more convenient for Israel, it doesn't mean there won't be restrictions. Syria, Iran, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict are expected to top the list of issues to be discussed between the two leaders. During his visit, Netanyahu will also meet with U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, and other senior administration officials. In an interview on Friday with Israel Hayom, Trump reiterated his position concerning settlements in Judea and Samaria, saying they do not help the process of reaching peace with the Palestinians. Trump said he is anticipating strong ties with Israel and has yet to decide whether or not to transfer the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. Residents of the Amona outpost protested outside the Prime Minister's office this morning, demanding that Netanyahu and Education Minister Naftali Bennett honor their commitment and approve the establishment of a new community. Under the banner, "Don't Forget Us Without a Home," the residents claimed that in December, the Prime Minister and Education Minister agreed to construct a new community for the 42 families evicted from the Amona outpost. The residents said they had already located a suitable plot of state-owned land to build a new community at the Geulat Zion outpost in the Shiloh block of the Binyamin district. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has offered former Foreign and Justice Minister Tzipi Livni to take on the role of Under-Secretary General. According to local media reports, Guterres telephoned Livni over the weekend to offer her the position. Livni, who heads the Hatnuah party and number 2 of the Zionist Union faction in the Knesset, has yet to respond to the offer, which would need to be approved by the UN Secretary Council. If Livni takes up the post, it will mark the first time an Israeli is appointed to such a senior position at the UN. A bid by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to nominate former Palestinian Prime Minister Salam Fayyad as Libya's next envoy and head of the body's political mission was blocked by the United States. Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, said on Friday that her country was disappointed to learn of the appointment. In a statement, Haley said that for too long the UN has been unfairly biased in favor of the Palestinian Authority. Fayyad served as Prime Minister of the PA from 2007 to 2013. Appointments of the UN Special Representative of the Secretary General require the unanimous backing of the 15-member Council. Israel has decided to downgrade its diplomatic ties with New Zealand and Senegal as a punitive measure to the two countries, which co-sponsored the UN Security Council's anti-Israel settlement resolution late last year. Prime Minister Netanyahu instructed both the Israeli ambassadors, who were recalled shortly after the resolution was passed, to not return to their posts in Wellington and Dakar. The Foreign Ministry said that until further notice, Israel will be represented by a chargé d'affaires in both countries. On the shores of the Sea of Galilee, the atrium of the historic Church of the Multiplication of the Loaves and Fishes is being consecrated this morning after it was torched and damaged by 2 teenagers 20 months ago. President Reuven Rivlin attended the Mass this morning, conducted by Cardinal Rainer Wolke, Archbishop of Cologne. The government compensated the church with $370,000, but Benedictine monks responsible for the site said this was insufficient and were able to raise nearly $1 million more from donations. 2 yeshiva students from Ofakim and Elad were convicted for setting fire to the church in a hate crime. Prime Minister Netanyahu and U.S. President Donald Trump are bound to find much common ground when they meet this week, so says Malcolm Hoenlein, Executive Director of the Conference of Presidents. Speaking to IBA's Aryeh O'Sullivan, Hoenlein says there is a general drift towards indifference regarding Israel among U.S. Jewish youth.
I think the fundamentals are there for a very strong relationship. I think that the discussion between them, while it will be introductory in a sense, but it will also, I'm sure, deal with some of the substantive issues on which they are very close. On Iran, on dealing, additional sanctions, on the questions of fighting terrorism, about the situation in Syria. I mean, I think those are some of the things that have to be primary, and maybe even the question of moving the embassy and the question of the vote, the recent vote in the Knesset about on the settlement issue. Those will probably all come up.
Reading a report like the Rudderman report that says that a lot of young Jews in America are losing their contact with Israel, that Israel doesn't resonate with them as it did with previous generations. Do you find that's true?
I would say that they probably don't relate to anything in international affairs or foreign affairs, that there are very few issues that excite them of that kind. It is part of the syndrome that we experience, so we have to work harder, more cleverly. We have to use the social media much more effectively to reach them with the truth. I believe, honestly, that is our strongest weapon. I see much more hopeful signs than some of the studies would indicate. But as I said, that there's a general drift towards indifference and apathy. And if you ask them about it, they say they don't care, which is exactly the point. So we shouldn't exaggerate the danger, but we shouldn't ignore it. One of the problems is that we ignore kids for the first 17 years of their lives and think that birthright is going to save them. Send them here for 2 weeks. I believe birthright is important, but we have to start much younger, be more creative, reach out, give different things for people to identify with. And there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Well, the majority of American Jewry happens to be Reform or conservative Jewry, and here they feel alienated when they come here. Like we see the past week with the Western Wall compromise, which isn't moving forward, the efforts by the ultra-Orthodox to maintain their control over that. So do you think in some ways, in your connection with Israel, that you think Israelis are not aware enough of what's going on in American Jewry?
I think that by and large, most don't understand the whole dynamic of American Jewry and why the programs that bring leadership there is important to sensitize them on a wide range of issues and concerns, to understand each other better. That if we want to build achdut and unity, it has to be where Americans understand Israel better and Israelis understand Americans better. And it means not imposing either side's wishes, desires, imperatives on the other. But I think that when you come together, you find out that the differences are far less than what they seem.
Security forces arrested a female Palestinian teenager armed with a knife at a checkpoint near the tomb of the patriarchs in Hebron yesterday. The girl pulled out a knife when she approached the checkpoint, but threw it to the ground when border police called on her to halt. She was arrested and handed over to security officials for questioning. Hours after a Palestinian teen shot and stabbed 3 people in a market in Petah Tikva Thursday afternoon, IDF forces raided his home in the village of Beta al-Foka, south of Nablus. Palestinian media reports have identified the perpetrator as 18-year-old Sadek Abu Mazen. Troops reportedly detained his father, along with several of his friends, and confiscated their work permits. The attack occurred late Thursday afternoon when Abu Mazen, armed with an assault rifle and screwdriver, began shooting people near a bus stop and in local stores. At some point, his weapon jammed and he fled, with locals in pursuit. He was eventually subdued by civilians, who threw a sewing machine at him to prevent him from harming anyone else. 3 civilians were wounded and taken to a nearby hospital. There's been growing concern among the nation's French-Israeli community following remarks made by far-right French presidential candidate Marine Le Pen, who said that if elected, she plans to ban Jewish citizens from having dual French-Israeli citizenship. Le Pen, the leader of the anti-immigration Front National, said she would bar French nationals from holding the citizenship of countries outside the European Union, with the exception of Russia, which she described as part of the European nations. According to Le Pen, Americans with dual citizenship will have to choose with which country they want to be associated. When specifically asked about the Jewish state, Le Pen said, quote, "It is not a part of the European Union." And moving to news abroad, chanting "Death to America, death to Israel," thousands of Iranians took to the streets on Friday to mark the anniversary of the Islamic Revolution. Footage shows Iranians trampling on pictures of U.S. President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Others were seen burning Israeli and U.S. flags. Some marchers carried banners that read, "Thanks to the American people for supporting Muslims," referring to Americans who opposed Trump's executive order, which banned entry of Muslims from 7 countries to the U.S. Whale rescuers in New Zealand tried to prevent 200 pilot whales from stranding themselves on Saturday. After 300 tragically died last week off the country's Golden Bay coast, rescuers stood in deep waters, linking arms to prevent the whales from heading towards the shore. Others poured water over beach whales, waiting for the high tide to send them back to the sea. Last Thursday, a conservation worker spotted the washed-up whales along the coast. Since then, rescuers and volunteers have been working around the clock to save as many whales as possible. It's Sunday, and as we head into a cold, wintry week, here are 5 good news stories that will hopefully put a smile on your face. Unafraid of boycotts, SodaStream International, which distributes seltzer-making products around the world, has begun proudly labeling its products with the Israeli flag. Israel's Elbit Systems gained a $110 million contract from an undisclosed Asia-Pacific country for the upgrade and maintenance of dozens of Mi-17 helicopters over the next 5 years. Tel Aviv University has been ranked among the world's top 10 colleges for having the highest number of graduates who founded privately owned billion-dollar startups, commonly known as unicorns. Israel will be batting at next month's World Baseball Classic Championships in South Korea. The Team Israel roster includes Jewish major and minor league players from the U.S. And finally, British Indian Jewish artist Anish Kapoor was named this year's recipient of the $1 million Genesis Prize. The award is given annually to individuals who inspire others through their engagement and dedication to the Jewish community and the State of Israel. And some more good news. Despite recent developments at the United Nations, the international body is gearing up for its upcoming Israeli-sponsored exhibition at the UN headquarters in New York. The unique exhibit, which goes on display this Wednesday, will feature some 30 Israeli nature and scenic photos taken by leading Israeli photographers, most of whom are workers of the country's Nature and Parks Authority. Ahead of the exhibit's opening, Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, said he was honored and proud to present the country's natural beauty to the rest of the world. Israel, he said, plays a significant role in the global effort to preserve and protect nature, and this is a great opportunity to show off its true face. Visiting Israel is French choreographer Thierry Melandin, whose Ballet Biarritz company will perform the ballet of Cinderella, called Cendrillon, at Tel Aviv's Performing Arts Center and Kiryat Motzkin Cultural Center this month. Melandin created the ballet in 2013 as a commission for the Royal Opera in Versailles. The choreographer said his interpretation focuses on the stepmother and her bad temper. Performances in Tel Aviv are scheduled for the 16th through the 18th and at Kiryat Motzkin on February 20th. In local money matters, shares were mixed on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, while there was no change in foreign currency trading. Here are the numbers. And looking to weather, the IBA weather team says there will be a drop in temperatures tonight with occasional showers. Tomorrow there will be more showers from the north to the Negev with flash floods in the eastern and southern regions. Here are the highs and lows at home and abroad. That's all for this newscast. We'll be back here tomorrow, same time, same channel. Until then, I'm Yael Shir, wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.